Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week we're catching up with Daniel and Kasi Haire, the farmers market pros and power couple who manage the Nolensville Farmers Market in Nolensville, Tennessee. I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I'm a longtime farmers market manager and education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager and consultant, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer and marketing director for Farmers Market Pros.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by Marketing for Markets, the simple online course that helps busy farmers, vendors, and market managers promote their businesses. Learn how to use your time wisely and focus on the right marketing methods for you and your customer base. Listen in and put free, effective tools to work today to increase your foot traffic and your sales. Register now by clicking Marketing for Markets on the online education page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everybody. Today, our guests are Daniel and Kasi Haire, who manage the Nolensville Farmers Market in Nolensville, Tennessee. We last spoke to Daniel and Kasi back in early 2020 when we were all adjusting our farmers market operations to accommodate COVID-19 protocols. In the time since, they've been invaluable contributors to our Farmers Market Pros online community, sharing brilliant market hacks and solutions to the sticky situations market managers constantly find themselves in. We're thrilled to welcome them back to Tent Talk to catch up on what they've been up to. Welcome back, Daniel and Kasi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excited to be back.
Yeah. We always like chatting with you guys.
Awesome.
Kasi, were you president of the Tennessee Farmers Market Association last time we talked to you?
Yes, I had actually just been nominated and elected as president of the association right after COVID happened.
So are you still?
I am still, yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Right. We got the president here.
That's right.
Very formal.
Get serious.
Well, we're so glad you are back. And we just wanted to start with like a little update. Last week when I was prepping for this episode, I re-listened to our first episode we did with you guys, and it was just like a crazy time warp of what we were going through in early 2020. And it was a wild time back then. So we just wanted to get a little update. Last time we discussed you implemented your drive-through market, and I was just wondering how long you guys did that.
So I believe it was only 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
A little less than a month. It was not very long. Fortunately, the governor of Tennessee moved pretty quickly on establishing farmers markets as being essential. And so, once we got our feet under us and figured out how we could make an in-person market work and spacing everybody out and masks and, how the town of Nolensville felt all about it, we were able to move back to a regular, well, I say regular, but, a spaced out mask market not long after starting the drive-through.
It's awesome that you're able to go back that quickly. It's only sad that the brilliant layout and things that Daniel seemed to figure out so quickly wasn't used for longer. So,
that's okay.
That's all right. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about like our market too. I mean, it took us like a year to really figure out how we were going to like let people in and out, and like everybody got used to it.
It was really a few weeks. But it felt like a year.
I feel like there was just a lot of learning experiences.
Yeah, we had to have those fences up or we couldn't have been open.
Yeah. My brain is mush in terms of that time.
Time warp, for
yes,
sure.
by the time we were in a rhythm, it was like, oh, okay, now we can change it back to just being open. So,
yeah.
That's funny.
But goodwill lasted.
So as far as your market location, you guys are located at a school, correct?
Yeah, so we're located at, it's not an actual school used now. It's a historic school that was built in the 40s.
Okay.
So now it's on the historic registry of National Historic Places. It's a museum, and then the one part is a museum, the other part is the old school gym. And so we have vendors inside the old school gym and then outside on the north side parking lot as well.
Okay, cool. So you're both inside and outside. How do you figure out in terms of like your vendors who gets to be inside, who gets to be outside? I'm sure in the summer people want to be inside, and in the colder days, or vice versa, people want to be, inside when it's colder and outside when it's warmer. How do you figure that out?
Yeah, so it's a tricky situation. We try to evaluate. It's not based on seniority; it's based on logistics, really. Our farmers with large, heavy loads, people with freezers, they all have to be outside. There's no getting that kind of stuff inside. A lot of our bakeries with things that melt, candles, people like that, our older vendors are usually inside just because they can't handle the heat. I think that's one thing that kind of gives us a leg up on some other markets, that we can have vendors that can't handle the heat because we have that inside location. When we first opened the market at this location, the gym actually did not have air conditioning at all. So we worked with the Historic Society that leases that space from the county and, help them put in air conditioning essentially. So it was a couple years of no AC in that gym. It got hot in the summer. We had those big fans, in the doors trying to move air as best we could. But still just getting people out of the sun was enough for them.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be a big advantage.
Yeah,
for sure.
Another advantage we have is that our vendors can actually park right at their spot too. And so the farmers really love that. And the people that have a lot of stuff to haul, I know you guys, when we visited you, your vendors have to haul everything and then go park several blocks away. And so it really helps with logistics in tearing down and setting up when the vendors can just park right there and work out of the back of their trucks.
Yeah, most of our vendors cannot. We do have a section in each market for heavy load farmers where that we can accommodate their trucks, but because of the width of the street and things, we can't do that with all the vendors.
Nice advantage for them to be able to park, though. That sounds like your farmers and vendors are probably very happy that they don't have to unload and then go park somewhere.
How's that affect the visual on the market? Are you seeing a lot of cars, or is the path between the vendors kind of open and then the cars are in the back, or does it?
So the cars are pulled up against a fence, and so then the vendors put their tents on the backside of their car. So
gotcha.
Really, the customers don't really see any cars. The aerial view, you can see them, but
but
not
nice.
Not in the market.
As long as customers are not arriving by helicopter, they're good, apparently.
Dropping in.
They're droning in.
Yeah.
That's also nice, too. It's kind of a good trade-off if you're like, okay, it's a really hot day. You'll have to be outside, but your cars are right here.
Yeah.
And the people that do get to be inside in the air conditioner, they have to load in.
Right.
So that is kind of a good trade-off. And last time we talked, you guys were going through a similar thing in terms of like a lot of market managers were pulling together and sharing resources, and you were working really closely with the Tennessee Farmers Market Association. Is that still kind of the case? Like 2 years later, are you guys still like working closely with other markets in Tennessee, or has that kind of faded away now that everyone's somewhat back to business as usual?
I would say that we're not meeting with other markets regularly. Obviously, the board is still meeting regularly. We're still trying to do things to promote markets in Tennessee, but it's not as regular as what we were doing in 2020 for sure.
You guys had a little bit of a conference, though, right? Or do you have a conference as part of a bigger conference?
So the PIC Tennessee conference in February, it brings 8 state associations together, and then we all kind of collaborate and create these different workshops. We work together to try to create classes that really hit on several different industries. So the Farmers Market Association put on classes not only for market managers, but for vendors as well. We have fruit and vegetable growers, organic growers, flower growers. Agritourism is a big association that comes. So we all kind of collaborate on the PIC Tennessee conference.
Yeah, that's
nice.
That's
cool.
So the vibe in Tennessee kind of back to quote unquote normal now. You just business as usual, or are you still seeing people with masks or any kind of protocols that you're following?
We don't have any special protocols that we have to follow. We do still see customers, and we do have vendors that are taking precautions. So that's not uncommon to see at all. But things are fairly normal. We've even gone back to some vendors are doing sampling and things like that. Were just a huge no-no back in 2020. And so it's really kind of people got used to shopping at markets and shopping outside and shopping with a shorter supply chain. And so we've really seen a growth in our customer base of who comes to the market.
That's great. Yeah, I think a lot of people across the country have done that. So you are really good at collecting that kind of data. Are you doing really precise counts of who's showing up? I know that you apply your engineering background to your role at the Farmers Market, Daniel, and you've always provided really great logistical solutions in our Farmers Market Pros community. And we've talked before about how you collect data on your vendor sales. Has anything changed about that? You still doing that?
I wouldn't say we've changed anything as far as what we're collecting. We always try to collect as much as possible and use that. We really are trying to use that data now to figure out what the holes in our market are. If it's interesting, we had something that's really common in your part of the country is seafood, but us being landlocked, we've invited a couple of seafood vendors that are what are we saying? They fish fresh. They fish in the oceans. And so they're not farmed. And it's all fresh, flown in very fresh or driven in very fresh. And so when we're looking at things like that, we look at how does that impact other protein vendors? We have one that has been with us for a very long time that's from Alaska. And it's a family run business that used to live right there in the community. And so they fly in fish all the time fresh from Alaska. And then we recently decided to have somebody from the Gulf states come and join us as well. And so we try to look at how does that impact the market overall? How does that impact the protein vendors overall? Does it decrease somebody else's sales by adding somebody else? But we always tend to find that adding more variety, more people, more selection, and high quality products makes everybody do better.
And I'm glad you're seeing that in hard, cold data, because that's definitely intuitively what we think, that the more choices shoppers have, the more shoppers you'll have. And the more shoppers you have, the better sales will be for everybody there. But I know that sometimes farmers and vendors are not as confident about that, and they start to feel threatened. So it's great when you can actually collect data and show them, look, this is true. These are the numbers, and they're going up when you add to the market.
And that helps us make decisions on who to not add to the market. And we try to teach our other market managers in the area that ask us, if you've got a vendor that is just barely meeting their goal or not quite meeting their goal, then it's probably best for you to help support them before you add somebody else that's a direct competitor to them, because then you're going to have your vendor that you've been working with for maybe the past year or two that's going to really be struggling now, because there will be that time when the customer sees both options, and so you don't want anybody to struggle. So it shows you when to add people and then when also not to add somebody.
Can that be a tricky balance, though, if you've got a vendor that's underperforming, maybe because they're not sales-oriented or they don't believe in doing aggressive display or that kind of thing? Are you disadvantaging the customers then by kind of protecting that category and not bringing in somebody that's a little more proactive and hungrier?
I would definitely make that argument as well. So what we try to do is we try to coach. And if we're doing our coaching and they're just still not performing, then maybe it is time to bring somebody else in. And maybe that'll it'll kind of make the situation resolve itself, or it'll bring both people up to having to perform better. And that's ultimately what we want.
Right. Yeah, we find that sometimes that somebody that's just kind of coasting will actually get inspired if they have somebody come in their category. And, competition is not always a bad thing. It
All of
does
a sudden, they're like standing up in their booth.
That's right.
Like,
Yeah. Kind of standing up and such. So when you collect sales data, how often do you collect it? And is it self-reporting? Are you just asking for your farmers and vendors for their sales?
It is self-reporting, but it's mandated. We require that all of the vendors check out at the end of the market, and we base our fee on that sales for that market. So no one pays ahead for the market. They pay at the end of the market based on their sales.
And so a lot of, there's an ongoing and continuous discussion about when that's happening, percentage around self-reporting. Do you feel like your vendors or farmers may be under-reporting?
I don't feel like that. I think, I think you can see a history of, if someone has reported a whole number every single week of the market, then that's probably not the truth, right? They're either rounding up or rounding down in some way, and it's probably rounding down. That's it's a hard conversation to have, but you have to have it. You have to tell them, like, we don't do anything. We don't turn their sales data into any government entity. The IRS is not going to come for us for your information. We use that to make decisions for the farmers market. And so by turning in, crumped numbers, you're giving us wrong information, and we can't make the right decisions to better their business and to better the market business.
And has your market always run like this? Or was there a point at which you started data collection and then you had to convince people to get on board?
From day one,
yeah. I think it would have been very difficult. And I know some other markets that have transitioned, it's been a very difficult task for them. And we've actually been asked to take over management of a few markets. And we've had a few vendors that when they found out that we've kind of have a little bit of a reputation in the area of how we manage things and run things. And a few vendors, when they found out we were taking over management, just stepped away from the market because they knew that they were going to have to perform. They knew that they were going to have to report, and they knew that we, didn't kind of back down from challenges from those problem vendors. And so that's been an interesting thing. Kasi did mention, which is funny, and this is when I kind of geeked out a little bit. We had a vendor that always should have been performing really well, but never reported very good sales. And so I went back and pulled several years of sales data from them and noticed that they did report the same number multiple times. Like we got up to like a dozen times over the past 3 years. And so when we confronted about them, of course, they were very defensive. And at that point, it's kind of like, it's hard to say because you're basically calling them a liar and they're saying that they're not. And so what I did was, and in my day job is we're always pressured to use facts and data. I went back and I pulled all the data overall for the markets and just did some statistical analysis of how many times other vendors have reported the same number. And it was like, if you looked at vendors reporting the same number multiple occasions, like 98% of the occurrences were them and only 2% were other vendors. So when I presented them with that, they were kind of like, oh, well, we'll do a better job of counting down our box at the end of the day.
And did they? Did they turn around?
They did turn around, and magically their sales increased dramatically.
Wow, that's all it took.
And then we ended up ending the relationship with them at the end of the season. And it wasn't for that particular reason or any particular reason. It's just, we didn't get along. And then also we don't want to do business with people we don't trust. And so that's a big part of how we run our markets is having that trust factor. And so we shouldn't ever have to get to the point where we don't trust that you're you're not self-reporting properly.
Yeah, and and you're right. Management operations people at various markets are a good fit with various farmers and vendors, and not everybody's a good. We have the same situation here, whereas if we start to consult with a market or we're opening a new market, we'll have farmers and vendors that go, oh, nope, don't want to deal with them. I don't want that whole thing where I have to be on time and I have to
have insurance,
have my certs up to date and that kind of thing. And that's okay. There's some people. I just had a farmer that I told, you know what, I understand you're operating in this other market and it's run much more casually, and maybe that's just a better fit for you. Maybe it's not a good fit for you here, where we're a little bit more strict about permitting and timing and all those good things. Do y'all do? I know that you use your data really effectively to make decisions for the markets. Are you also doing grant applications? Are you grant funded at all? Do you use the data for that?
Yes. So Tennessee does a farmers market promotion grant every year. There's not really a lot of data collection in that. So that was one of the only grants that we were getting years previously. But because we had this backlog of data, just recently this year, we actually got a Vanderbilt Health Community Grant.
That's great.
And so that's, yes, it's really fun to see, because we could show that we were already running these programs like our Double Snap program, the Kids Pop program that we did last year at Nolensville. So we already had this data of how many families we were serving, how much money they were spending, and how that increased the sales with the farmers. And so by having that backlog of data, we were able to get another grant that could continue financially supporting those programs for the next year.
Yeah, so that's a huge one if you're at all eligible for grants. I know for things like PPP, having collected data helped a lot of organizations. You needed to be able to show those numbers. So there's so many good reasons to collect data. I will say that we're one of those folks where we keep talking about doing it. We collect our farmers' data, but not our other vendors, because we don't charge a percentage. We're on a flat fee. I would love to have those numbers to apply to some decisions about the market and maybe to look at some grant funding and things, and convincing our folks at this point to give up that information voluntarily and accurately, I think will be really tricky, especially because we operate in a geographic area where we're the only ones with flat fee markets. Everybody else charges a percentage. So I'm sure a lot of suspicion about us changing to a new system would come up if we started that. We're probably going to have to bite the bullet and plunge in anyway this year. I'm really determined to increase our data collection, but I do think it's going to be tricky. And so I admire how much you've been able to do that. You do some other really innovative things with sponsorship.
Yeah, in our Farmers Market Pros community, the topic of sponsorship came up, and you guys shared your brilliant idea of Daniel wearing a T-shirt with the sponsor of the week on it, which the three of us just couldn't believe how brilliant that was. It's awesome. How does that work? How is that working for y'all? And what are some other sponsorship stuff that you guys do at your market?
Well, I guess we're going to find out this week. This week's going to be the first week that I wear a T-shirt. So I'm excited.
Wait, are you usually shirtless at the market?
I'm usually shirtless at the market, so I'm going to wear a T-shirt this week. It'll be a big shock for people, so hopefully I'll get a lot of people to notice. But if you see Casey and I out anywhere in public, we're typically wearing a branded shirt from the market. And so people kind of recognize that. And so we're hoping that people come up and recognize. And then I talk to customers and vendors all day, every day. I love to stand at vendor booths and just talk to customers as they're, the vendor is oftentimes they ask for something. The vendor has to go back, run to a freezer or go pack something up for them. And so that's a chance for me to get to talk to customers and understand what they like, what they're doing at the market. And then now it'll be a chance for me to say, okay, hey, look at our sponsor. And you just hit on something about grants and data collection, and which data collection is great for grant writing because most grants require that. But the way we have changed and approached our sponsors is we used to just ask sponsors to help support the community and support the farmers. And that's great. And a lot of companies want to do that, but they want to get an ROI. What's their return? And so we use that data to show them, if you sponsor our market, you're going to be in front of 1,700 customers this week. If you come multiple weeks, you're going to be in front of multiple thousands of customers. And you're going to be in front of customers that, one, in all honesty, pay a little bit of a premium for a product. They care about their products. And so you got customers that are more invested in the companies. They want to support local companies because they're there supporting the local farmers market. So we use that data and that to attract sponsors and help show them what they're really getting out of the market. So we use the local community to invest in the market as well as the grant opportunities. And that's been fantastic for us to use both. And coming up with new ways for the sponsors to do things and spend money has been, I think, one of the best things we've spent our time doing the last couple of years. We do banners on our Facebook. We do banners on our emails. We get mentions on our webpage. We get shout outs in certain things. Our newsletter that goes out, you can get a banner or you could get a story or a blurb. And so we've changed from more of the big package, which is a little hard to swallow, to more of an a la carte menu. Because it's easier to spend $100 here, $200 there on something small, and that still adds up to $300 or $400 for the market or $500 for the market, which is a huge help to us. But it's easier for the company to see, oh, I'm not just a $500 sponsor and I get a few things. I can get all these wide variety of things, and it feels better.
Yeah, it's great. We have so many people that say, oh, I wish I was a nonprofit so I could get sponsors. And we keep saying, you can get sponsors without being a nonprofit. The marketing sponsorships are much more on the rise than philanthropic sponsorships.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. And up until this year, and technically Nolensville is not a 501c3. We've got two organizations that Casey and I are managing. One of them is a 501c3, and so we're about to roll Nolensville under that. And so Nolensville will be under a 501c3 umbrella, which will help with those philanthropic sponsorships. But we've been purely, getting sponsorships for the last 8 years off of, what can you do to support the community and what can you do to promote your company in the community? And it's more of advertising at that point than it is really, charitable.
Yeah, because you've got a great audience.
Yeah, and those partnerships I feel like are great, and you'll probably get more like locally owned, smaller businesses, which is kind of more the farmers market shtick. I feel like I like when those smaller businesses can come in, and it's not just these big corporations that can pay the big fees for the big sponsorships. At farmers markets especially, it's nice to get those, like the businesses that and that the places you probably go to on your own time because you're in the community too, pulling them into the market. So having those a la carte options, I feel like, are just such a good help for that.
It also, too, is a way that you can kind of continue to curate your market. Like if somebody comes in and is like, hey, I have a gutter cleaning service. If you don't really want to give them like their own booth at the market, giving them an a la carte way to like be a sponsor or kind of advertise at the market is a way that you can kind of stay true to a farm forward market while also involving other small businesses. Like at our market, our fee for like being a sponsor at the market, popping tent, is pretty high. So not all businesses can do that, but if you are like, hey, well, you can have a banner on our Facebook or you can be in our newsletter, that is a way to involve these services or other businesses that don't really fit in terms of like having a booth at the market.
Makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, what kind of 501c3 did you have or do you have that you're bringing the market into? What's the mission of that nonprofit?
So that 501c3 is over our other two markets. And the reason we were able to get the 501c3 status is because of our double snap, our pop club, our kids education, and our feed your neighbor programs. So we're really pushing money back into underserved community members, and that's a big part of charitable organizations. The government wants to see that you're putting money back into the pockets of people that really need it the most.
Were you going to say something, Casey?
You know, we won't take full credit for the change in the sponsorship menu. That the 2021 Intense conference that was all online, you guys had a sponsorship session.
Melissa
and
Maltese.
That really,
Yeah.
it really opened my eyes to thinking like outside of the box. How can we get businesses to donate money without, because, you know, dates at the market and spaces at the market are limited to begin with. So there was a cap there that we could get. So how can we broaden that box and get more money and feature different sponsors in a different way?
Oh, that's good. Shout out to Melissa Maltese.
Yeah,
She is awesome.
She's
She is
really
awesome,
creative,
yeah.
and all those different ideas just, I mean, we've tried a bunch of different things, and every time she talks, it's always like these light bulbs are going off about new things we can do. And
She was the one at this year's conference where somebody said, well, so I have a hard time getting people to just donate to the market, and she just burst into laughter. She said, that's not why people sponsor.
Yeah, we're
people
not- it's not a
sponsor us for
donation.
those marketing partnerships.
Yeah, it's a marketing.
Yeah.
It's just like they would do other marketing, like advertise in the newspaper or, you know, run an ad somewhere. It's like that. You have to think about your farmers market as a great marketing vehicle and a tool for people to come in and bring extra money to the market and get their business kind of partnered up with your customers. So,
And that was our thought, because if you look at the Nolensville community, it's basically a 5-mile radius, which I know in your part of the country, a 5-mile radius is huge, but in more rural Tennessee, 5 miles, as densely packed as Nolensville is a lot of people. And if I get 2,000 people at the farmers market on Saturday morning, there is absolutely no place that a small business could go and see that many people in that period of time. And so that was one of the things we really pushed, was for, this is a huge weekly community event. I mean, we have mega churches that don't have as big of a congregation in the Nashville area as we see on a Saturday morning. So you could easily meet people that live right there that are ready to spend money and get those marketing partnerships, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And I bet those mega church pastors wouldn't even wear a T-shirt with your logo on it.
You guys are a mega church.
We're pretty
Saturday church.
Yeah.
worshiping at the altar of fresh food here, all of us.
I'm going to pitch that T-shirt idea to some of our sponsors, because I'll wear a T-shirt, walk around the market. Yeah, it's fine. I love that idea. I love it.
The greatest thing about it is it costs us absolutely nothing.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
They give me the T-shirt.
Yeah, right?
The overhead on
Oh, I
this.
got a new T-shirt.
Yes. I mean, like a banner and all that stuff. I mean, there's all those costs and stuff. It's like they have a T-shirt with their business information on it. Like, how easy is that?
A
It's just
mobile
perfect.
billboard.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, you guys are so innovative with your market ideas, and we love kind of seeing your input in the Facebook community group that we have for Farmers Market Pros. So just talking about like trends in the future of farmers market with you guys, since you guys have been managing farmers markets for nearly a decade, have you noticed any kind of changes in farmers markets since you started in 2014? Kind of things that you think might continue, like looking at trends ahead. What are some things that you guys have been thinking about?
I have one, but I'll let Casey talk first.
I was going to say, that sounds like a really long time,
Yeah.
the way you said it.
Right?
Yeah.
And you guys look like
So really old
babies.
now.
So I guess you
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
managing markets when you were 12.
Yeah.
Like rosy cheeks, they're so fresh faced. You'd never know they've been
Still
doing this for
energetic
almost
too,
10
because
years.
a lot of farmers market managers, it's like you come up on a decade and like you got the gray hair and you're a little worn out and like you're a
They
little
still
tired.
look young.
You
My
guys
hair
have the
was
energy.
red when I started managing markets. I just want everybody to know that.
I love showing that picture.
We changed so much stuff. Like both Casey and I have the personality of always to change things, modify them, what can be better, what can be different. And so like we haven't done the same thing hardly back to back. I think the biggest change for us was, biggest trend is it went from farmers markets were more of, kind of a hippy dippy thing to in 2020 people really, in 2021 people really started to go, who all is touching my food? Where all is this food coming from? And there's so many more people got interested. The customers started asking more questions. In the beginning, you would have a few customers that really spent a lot of, you could tell them they were interviewing each vendor. And then once they found ones they liked, they were super loyal. Now a wider section of the community feels that way, and they've become loyal. Vendors know their names. They pre-order. They do all kinds of things that just we didn't see in the beginning, because they're so much more interested in what is going into their bodies. So I think that's been a very positive thing for farmers markets.
Yeah, I do too. It's really, I feel like our demographic has just gotten so much wider, partly as a result of the pandemic. I think people had more time to read. There were things that have been going on really for years that a lot of folks just weren't paying attention to, but they had time to follow that.
And more concerned about health.
Yeah,
just
and
in
being concerned about health in general. I mean, that was a big issue. And then, of course, supply chain issues where all of a sudden you couldn't necessarily get meat at your grocery store. Those shelves and freezers were empty. So it gave people a chance to kind of get out and find out there was something else out there. What do you think, Casey?
Daniel said everything that I think. I think the breakdown in the supply chain really shined a light on farmers markets across the nation, hopefully the world. I'd like to see that. I hope that trend continues.
Yeah, food safety things. I'm on a list because I've got health permits and things where I get notices of recall almost every day, and oftentimes it's produce and things, and it's not coming from small farmers. It's coming from big commodity processors, and I think other people they don't see it as often as I do. They're not on those lists, but it pops up in the newspaper and on TV too, and I think people are realizing that, maybe there's some additional safety and comfort in knowing exactly who's producing your food and how they're treating it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Any predictions for the future of farmers markets, or the future of your farmers market specifically?
I don't know. There's so many changes that are being made in the state right now. They recently signed a Food Freedom Act bill, which will go into effect in July. And just reading that bill, we've been working with the Department of Agriculture to ask questions like, how does this affect vendors? And it's supposed to make home food vendors more eligible to sell, and we're not sure to sell to whom. I know it specifies to wholesale, but it doesn't specify farmers markets. So we're still waiting to hear the answers to those questions for the Department of Agriculture to figure out how they're going to regulate that bill. I think that's going to change a lot in farmers markets. I'm not sure yet if it's for the good or the bad. So that's coming down the pipeline. And I'd really like to see the state implement a state inspected processing certification. Right now, all the meat sold at farmers markets has to be USDA inspected. There are some other states that have state inspected processing facilities that farmers can use to sell direct to consumer, not necessarily wholesale. And I think, that was one of the things that COVID really shined a light on, is our lack of processing units here in Tennessee. Farmers just cannot get a processing date. And so that was an influx that we had seen before COVID, was the number of meat producers wanting to be at markets. And we've really seen a slowdown in that lately because of the lack of processors. So I'd really like to see the state of Tennessee do a state inspected processing certification. I think that'll, even the playing field a little bit, and it'll just allow for local meat to be more accessible.
Yeah, that's been a fight all over the country. I know we have the same issues here. So few processors and federal regulations that have been so counterintuitive and not helpful. Specifically not being allowed to label your meat for where it comes from. That's an insane regulation to me. And obviously,
it is.
Backed by lobbyists from from the evil empire. But
we were just talking yesterday how we need to start our own lobby company. So if you guys want to join as consultants.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. I had a conversation with another market manager that manages a large number of markets on the other side of the country about the lack of lobbying power that we have for farmers markets, which is crazy given the amount of people involved in the economic engine that it really is all across the country.
Well, I'm going to brag on Kasi then, because the Tennessee Association of Farmers Markets, which she's the president of, that's really our lobbying wing. And so we, when I say we, Kasi mostly is in constant contact with our Tennessee Department of Agriculture and our state people and she is the first to let them know this is going to impact farmers markets in a negative way, or this is what you could do to impact farmers markets in a positive way, or we need funding for this, or we need funding for that, or that kind of thing. And so fortunately, we have our state association, and under Kasi's leadership, they're really doing that job. But I could easily see where that is not happening other places in the country. And so, it's even with as much time and energy as she puts into it, it is a bit of a contentious relationship, because we are giving feedback and they are saying no, because Tennessee, big agriculture is still it's still the number one industry in Tennessee, as it is in a lot of states. And the big agricultural people get a lot of the time, they get a lot of the resources. And so helping small agriculture is difficult, but we just have to keep pushing and making sure that our voice is known.
Well, thank you for doing your part. And thank you, Kasi, so much for being a voice for small farmers and rural food and small businesses.
As they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So you have to...
Let's just keep squeaking.
Yeah, keep squeaking, baby.
Anything else we should have asked you that we didn't?
That's a good question.
I feel like we make this like a two-part series.
Yeah, it is. So I'll be happy to come back in a couple of years and do the third part. I just want market managers out there to know that what you're doing is important, and to make sure you're always fighting for your vendors, to make sure that you're doing what's right for your customers. And a lot of people let people in 2020, governments and local officials and just people that were angry and running on emotion only make bad decisions for farmers markets. And we tried very hard not to do that. And I want other market managers to know that there's people out there to support them, like this group. And you don't have to back down. Like, do what's right for the vendors and the customers.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
absolutely. Singing our song. Great to have you on our team. Thank you guys for the good work that you do. Pleasure talking to you as always. We won't wait another 2 years. You'll be back soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. For more information and actionable tips on using the right tools to bring people to your tents, sign up today for our new online course, Marketing for Markets. Save time and get results today when you click Marketing for Markets on the online education page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Farmers markets are all about connection, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Connect with people just like you from various parts of the country and share what's happening in your area in the terrific conversations over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros Community. If you're actively involved in a farmers market, please find us there, answer the 3 qualifying questions, and join the group. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. If you're looking for further education, check out our online course offerings at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us and others how you're enjoying Tent Talk. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week, so tune in.